New York Times versus the United States, 1971. This case revolves around the leaking of top-secret classified information regarding the United States and Vietnam relations from 1945 to 1967. This report was done by the Department of Defense and was a military analyst of how the United States was involved with Vietnam during this time period. The releasing of this information became known as the Pentagon Papers. Daniel Ellsberg, a military analyst who worked on the original report and was assistant to the U.S. Secretary of Defense, was held responsible for the leaking of the information. He was charged under the Espionage Act for criminal charges. This ruling was important because it set precedent for how much and how far the government would have to go to prove their constitutional validity when trying to amend and/or diminish a constitutional right to free speech.
Edward Snowden was born in North Carolina in 1983. At age 23 in 2006, Snowden was hired by the CIA to work as a tech expert and receive top-secret clearance. From 2007 to 2009, he was sent undercover to Geneva and granted access to classified documents. In 2012, Snowden began working for the National Security Agency, better known as the NSA. He and his girlfriend moved to Hawaii to work at the Hawaii NSA facility. At the end of 2012, Snowden contacted award-winning documentary filmmaker Laura Poitras. Out of these interactions came the documentary Citizen4. He reached out to her in the hopes that she would document the information he wanted to release about the illegal actions of the NSA invading the privacy of the American citizens. They agreed to meet in Hong Kong. Snowden also contacted Guardian columnist Glenn Greenwald, who agreed to meet them in Hong Kong and release articles as Snowden shed light on the illegal government actions. Snowden soon after revealed himself as the source. The U.S. Justice Department has charged Snowden with theft and violations of the Espionage Act. Once Snowden revealed himself as the source, he left Hong Kong and headed to Ecuador but was stopped in Russia because the U.S. government canceled his passport. He now resides under asylum in Russia.
There are a few differences when comparing Snowden's case and Daniel Ellsberg's case. First is that the American public wanted to hear what the Pentagon Papers had to say. There was a lot of political unrest surrounding the Vietnam War, and so bringing light to the reality of the Vietnam War was something that the American public desired. However, when Snowden leaked classified materials, a lot of people didn't know what was going on, and so didn't know how to resonate with the information that he shared. The other difference is the status of the individuals involved. Snowden worked for the CIA but had a lot of lower-level jobs and wasn't very well known. Ellsberg, on the other hand, worked in the Department of Defense and was one of the top security clearance officers in the United States government. There were also differences in how the newspapers were treated. In the New York Times versus United States, the New York Times and Washington Post were the ones that were issued an injunction and were sued by the United States government. However, The Guardian and other various papers that ran stories about Snowden and the classified information he leaked have not been publicly reprimanded, given an injunction, or sued by the United States government.
There are three similarities when looking at the two cases presented. The first is the fact that both involve charges under the Espionage Act because of the unauthorized communication of national defense information. Second, both Snowden and Ellsberg were antagonized and persecuted by the government. Ellsberg was silenced during trial and dismissed after his arguments, and Snowden is being denied access to his passport and extensively watched by the government. Finally, both cases revolved around shedding light on the ways in which the government is lying to the citizens of the United States.